Federal law should ban targeted state business incentives. The United States is trapped in a race to the bottom where states are forced to cannibalize their own tax income in order to bribe corporations into staying or arriving from elsewhere. This amounts to public auctions for corporate favor. That's not what your corporations can do for you, but what you can do for your new corpo overlords. Welcome to America. We see this in the giga factory strategy, utilized by Tesla, pitting Texas against Oklahoma to secure millions in tax rebates. The famous Amazon HQ2 incident, 238 cities debasing themselves to offer billions in public funds to a company which had already barely paid any taxes at all in recent years. Like Maryland's 8.5 billion offer for headquarters that ultimately went to Virginia. Blah blah blah. Um, yeah, if each individual state is allowed to only consider itself, such as, well, it's better to have a company here than not have a company here, and federal law has unwilling to protect the people in America for which it is supposed to do, then what you have is most major corporations paying next to nothing in taxes, and we just we're happy that they exist. Thank you, corporations, for existing. Thank you. We'll work your fields and whatever the fuck else you need us to do, because we need to eat and we need somewhere to live. So thank you for existing, corporal overlords. Um, Mostly these deals are garbage. They give away things and only get promises back. Sometimes they were just promises. There were just threats to start with, and other times it's promises of a number of jobs, but there's never strings attached. It's just giveaways. And in the worst, oh no, camera turned off. In the worst case, you have like the actual officials who or representatives who negotiated these deals. Oftentimes, as they do, later getting hired by the business or the industry for which they gave the deal to.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, Casey, basically, my question to you is, what do you believe is the primary driver of economic growth, if not corporations? Because the way I see it, corporate innovation through noticing previously unnoticed opportunities is the primary driver of economic growth, and therefore lowering the taxes creates a supply side incentive for R&D, research and development. But what do you think is the primary driver of economic growth?
Certainly, in corporations, you're inferring a false dichotomy. However, where if we don't give them everything that they want, or these deals, they won't exist or whatever. False dichotomy, obviously.
But that's not what I said. What I just
Okay, good.
I
Yeah,
didn't even
corporations.
say
Yeah, they agree.
any.
That's fine. The corporations.
Okay, and so I believe if you take that to its logical conclusion, we should support supply side economics and corporate friendly environments to incentivize economic growth, which leads to things like higher wages and higher employment.
Mhm.
Um, Basically, so to clarify my position, I do not believe that subsidies are a good thing. The original prompt was about tax cuts, which I do support, not subsidies. The prompt was changed to shorten it, and that was changed to include any sort of incentive. But I'm against incentives in the form of subsidies, and I'm for incentives in the form of tax cuts. The reason I'm for incentives in the form of tax cuts is because, as I was saying in the questioning period, I believe that corporations and corporate innovation is the primary driver of R&D, research and development, and I believe that you can look at historical evidence where R&D is correlated statistically with um, lower taxes, but putting that aside, I would also like to make a moral case that the fact that corporations contribute to society through things like hiring people and research and development and innovating to help consumers. So consumers are helped, employers are helped, and even arguably the environment is helped because businesses also have an incentive to innovate to make sure that they're not creating negative externalities because that can push away consumers. Basically, that means that corporations are net positive for society, and on a base ethical level, they are entitled to the money which they earn through transactions in a free market. Now, I do believe corruption is an issue, and so things like subsidies and Federal Reserve quantitative easing policies, which benefit corporations at the expense of other people, are bad, right? So I'm not for government support of corporations. What I believe we should have is that we should have a truly free market where we lower taxes in states and we get rid of subsidies. So yeah, and I'll see the rest of my time.
The the most troubling with the was likely be the transferable tax credits. These are a special kind of effed up. It's like because at the point where they're not paying taxes anyway, they don't want your tax cuts. They're not paying taxes anyway. So you give them transferable tax credits they could just sell for actual money. It's beyond effed. It's beyond fucked. Are you you're defending transferable tax credits?
Transferable tax credits. I'm actually not familiar with this. Can you explain it in more
Exactly what
detail?
exactly what they sound like. It's like it's credits that instead of paying like $1 million in taxes, if you have a tax credit, you could just give that to the state instead. But they're also transferable. But by transferable in quotes or whatever, what they really mean is they're sellable. So when a corporation is paying zero in taxes, they don't want your tax breaks. They are already paying zero, so they're given transferable tax credits. It's like basically giving them cash that because they'll just liquidate that, right?
Okay, then I
Um,
disagree with transferable tax credits then.
why?
I'm against because I'm against subsidies.
I mean,
And that's the way you described it, it sounds like a form of subsidy, so I'm against subsidies, so I'm against that.
what's the distinguishing factor between subsidies and tax breaks that you have an issue with?
Because tax breaks are the government not taking money from a corporation that the corporation owns. Subsidies are giving things to a corporation that the corporation doesn't own. So in one case, you're simply not interfering with the company. In one case, in the other case, you are interfering with the company in order to favor the company. I'm against interference, whether it's taking money from the company or giving money to the company. I believe the company should be left alone, and that means not giving it nor taking from it.
Okay, so we get to focus on the tax breaks or cuts or whatever. If every state was out to give like like tax breaks to try to get to incentivize these companies, do you recognize that it's actually just like a race to like who can give them the best mostest like greatest incentives. So and also moreover these jobs would exist anyway for Americans.
So
You have any issues with those
I
types of
want to
things?
clarify my position. As I
Okay.
said multiple times, I'm against subsidies. So I would
Okay, so,
say that,
sorry. Oh, it's a text box. So it's fine.
fine.
Yeah.
So if all states continuously lower their taxes on
Hmm.
corporations, I'm fine with that because I don't support taxes on corporations in general.
You don't. Why is
No,
that?
I because I believe that corporations are the primary funders of R&D, research and development. I believe they are drivers of um, employment. They hire people, which is beneficial to the economy because those same people that they hire are going to spend their money, which higher supply means more money, which means higher demand. So there's a sense in which if you have a supply side economics that actually incentivizes the consumer spending as well, so it's also good for demand. Um, and just on a moral level, I believe people should be treated as ends in themselves, and that means other people's ends. I believe that corporations don't necessarily have an intrinsic social responsibility to fund other people. They have a responsibility to their shareholders, and that is their primary responsibility. because the shareholders own the company. If you don't like what a company is doing, you don't have to buy from them. But I believe in free association and free transactions, and I don't believe higher taxes is a good thing, both on consequentialist grounds in the sense that I'm against. I don't think they're pragmatically effective, but also on moral grounds, which is regardless of the practical effects, I believe people are entitled to the money they earn in a free market. And if you
Okay,
disagree, we might
so
have a fundamental moral disagreement.
well, we do, but I'm trying to keep it a little focused at least. So do you recognize that if a company, let's say, pays all their normal expenses or whatever, their revenue, then they pay the normal expenses or whatever. Let's say they have $1 million left over. If they're trying to take that $1 million out of the company, like give it to their owners or their wherever they're trying to take it out, only then will it be, or to say that it's net income, it will be taxed. Like, and let's say there's a question here, and it's going to be like, what is that? I'll just, but if they instead spend that $1 million in R&D, for instance, you mentioned R&D, then that $1 million won't be taxed, and they would have, or even like expanding their corporation or whatever. Like you mentioned that that this would like somehow help R&D or whatever, but we don't, but this doesn't isn't a tax on their R&D. In fact, it's the opposite. Is it true that companies are more likely to not pay for R&D if they could easily as just take the money out of take that money out of their of the company without taxes? Is that true?
Not necessarily, because if the company wants to expand as a whole, that's to say, if they don't want to just keep their profits and then move on
Mhm.
with their lives, but if they actually want to increase their profits over the long term, then they'll have an incentive to do R&D, because if you basically have R&D that the shareholders will get even more money in long term, so it's exponential growth rather than linear growth.
Right. It well that so so if we were to incentivize R&D, why would we have no taxes? Why would we lower taxes? If we're trying to incentivize R&D, we would want to incentivize them not taking the money out, right? We want to
Because
incentivize them to spend it,
the
to
more
incentivize them
money,
to expand it.
because the thing that incentivizes R&D is future profit gains. If their profits are taxed, then they won't feel like, oh, I'm going to do R&D because I'm not going to get as much money from it. Whereas if their profits aren't taxed, then they're not then they're more likely to invest in R&D because they want to increase their profits.
That doesn't make any sense because you're taxing what they're not spending on R&D. It doesn't follow that they would spend more on R&D if they didn't have any taxes.
Because
It just
what
doesn't
I'm saying is,
follow.
what they're not spending on R&D, they're keeping to themselves, correct?
Yeah, presumably.
Okay. And what I'm saying is, because they want to keep more money to themselves, if we have a lower tax environment, then they're going to want to keep more money for themselves, and so they're going to want to do more R&D, because more R&D means keeping more money for themselves. Does that make sense?
No, no, not really. Because if we want them to do more R&D, we should raise the taxes. If we don't want them to do R&D, we could give them no taxes. Um,
No, because as I
and
said,
then they
if
could
you
choose freely. Like if there was no taxes, they could choose, right? They could choose to do an R&D, or they could choose to take the money out. Like it's their choice, and there's no outside influence on them, right? But then to add a
no, there
tax at
is
that
an
point,
outside influence. There is an outside influence,
yeah,
is what I'm saying. What
what's the
I'm
outside
saying is, the
influence?
outside influence is, they want to make money. They want to make lots and lots of money. The way to make more money is by making better goods and services, so consumers will buy better goods and services. Therefore, they'll want to do R&D to earn lots and lots of money. If you
So
have lower taxes, they can keep that lots and
right.
lots of money.
We're presuming there aren't any in the instance where there's no taxes on their net income. Then there's no outside. Then they could choose either or, right, freely.
No, no,
Are
no,
we
because
agree?
if they don't do R&D, then consumers will stop buying from them and will start buying from other companies that
Right.
are doing
I'm
R&D.
saying it's their choice either or. Right.
No,
It's their
consumers
no.
consumers
Right, but
will
it's their
force.
choice.
Okay.
it's the company's choice. It's the company's choice, and the state isn't affecting it, right? It's their choice.
No, in practice,
It's
it's
not their
not.
choice.
No,
How is it not their
because
choice?
they want because they are desiring money and they want to
Right.
get money from consumers. The way to get money from consumers is R&D.
It is or it is not their choice without the state influencing them. It isn't
Yes, it is
without
not their
taxes.
choice without the state influencing them.
Why is it so?
Because
It's not their choice because that's weird because a lot of them choose to take the money out, but they don't have a choice. That's weird. I'm
well, they
confused.
have okay.
So they don't
It
have a
depends how you
choice.
define choice. They have a choice in the sense that yes, technically they
Yeah,
can
you mean literally?
take the money out and not do
You
R and
mean
D. What
actually?
I'm saying is it's not in their self interest to do that, and
Right.
they're going to
Okay.
pursue their self interest.
Whether that's true or not, we could put that aside because it is it. We want we as a group
No,
of
but we
people, a
can't
society.
put that
Hold on.
aside.
Hold on.
No, but we
I,
can't. Okay,
I don't.
but I'm sorry, but
You're saying they're better off doing R&D. That's obviously not always true because they often take the money out. So what you're saying is factually wrong because they often take the money out. They
well, then
often do
I'd like a
stock
source for
buybacks.
that.
Yeah, all the fucking $10 billion of fucking stock buybacks and 2020 whatever the fuck it was. You do recognize that's a thing, right? Sorry, stock buybacks.
I'm
That's a
willing to
thing,
believe
right?
it, but I would like a source on that.
You're willing to believe that stock buybacks exist. Have you heard the
I'm
term before?
I vaguely. I don't even remember
Vaguely.
what stock buyback is. Can you but can you actually send a link on stock buybacks? Because I'm willing to
You could
believe it.
look it up. It's a thing,
Okay.
but there are other ways that like the people who own the company get paid,
But
or
also
whatever,
this is just
different ways.
assuming that R&D was my only argument. My other argument was the morality of it. All right. So
Right,
the
right, right.
morality is
Okay,
also that they don't
hold on.
have an intrinsic social obligation to
Let
people
me get
other than the
to the
people that
point.
own the company.
Let me get to the point that I was trying to make. It's short. Yeah. So if there's no taxes, then they're free to choose R&D or to take the money, and that there's not the outside influence. But as we have a society want to influence them to do R&D, they're more likely then to do the R&D if it costs them money to take the money out. The more money it takes to bring the money out, the less likely they're going to do it, at least in the short term. So you could say that they're going to always pick R&D or whatever because it'll be worth more for them in the long run or whatever, and that's sometimes the choice they make, sometimes it's not. But you were trying to take you were positing the idea that they're more likely not, or they're more likely to do R&D if they're not being taxed. But my point is that's actually the opposite.
Yeah, and I understand your point, but what I'm saying is just to wrap this up because I see the time is done. That the reason the point doesn't work is because R&D would happen because of the profit incentive, because they want to take the money out and they want to take more money out, and the way to take more money out is by having more money, which you get from R&D, which sells to more goods and services to
Mhm.
consumers.
They do take the money out though, right? Sometimes in one form or the other, they
I'm going
do
to put
sometimes.
3 minutes on to let y'all finish this line of questioning. Go ahead.
They do sometimes, right? I mean,
Okay.
okay,
Um,
it doesn't.
Fine,
They
but
do think.
also let's get to the
Okay.
moral point because I'm willing to
Okay.
concede. Here's the thing: I, Emart, whatever you want to call me, Panda, whatever, am willing to concede. Energy, I'm willing to concede there would be less R&D if we had lower taxes. I still think that would be on a moral level justified because I don't believe companies have an intrinsic social obligation to society as a whole. I believe that companies have a moral obligation to the shareholders because their shareholders are the ones who spent money on the company, who spent the labor trying to build companies off of the ground, and because of the fact that companies do so much for society already, that they even if they don't go the extra step and do all this R&D stuff, the fact that they're hiring people, the fact that they're innovating goods and services, the fact that they're feeding us, giving us clothing and shelter,
Feeding us.
and well, yes, where do
Okay.
you get your food? You don't go hunting, you go to the grocery market, and from that's a company, right? The fact that they're responsible for this means that they're doing a public service and they're entitled to the profits they earn in a free market. And if you disagree with that because of utilitarian grounds, and we might have to agree to disagree, is fundamentally my moral intuition is that people who earn money voluntarily through transactions and through providing values to other people are entitled to the money they earn. So if you have an argument against that, then fine. But I would like to know what ethical basis you're basing that off of.
Yeah, well, the rules were already there when they made the corporation. They paid the state to make a corporation, and they agreed to pay the people in the state or the people like some amount of money in the. It was an exchange. We let Bezos make $1,000 billion trillion. We allowed him to. We said, okay, fine, do it because it benefited us. But if we knew that they weren't going to pay any fucking taxes ever, we would rather have someone else done it. Basically, we would be much better off if they had done it and also done it and paid taxes. Basically, there's more moral thing, or the moral thing is basically you signed up for it. So
Well,
there, and
I'll just say that law doesn't determine morality, that laws can be unjust, that rules can be unjust, and that tax laws can be unjust as well.
All right.
fine. I'm saying that it's not just a law, but it's something they signed off, they agreed to before starting the business. Yeah, the Chatter Conrad is some may know Chatter Conrad. He once was like telling me about how like during like the industrial revolution, like the European workers are like their quality of life was actually worse than the average slave in America. Very offensive, very offensive. But actually pretty accurate. Um, actually accurate during that time frame. Um, and I'm reminded of the scene in Game of Thrones where Tyrion is like hosting the slavers and trying to show them that like and he brings in some sex workers to in order to show them that everything that they wanted, everything that they wanted that they were getting, like they could have it under capitalism. They didn't you don't need to chain them up. If you just let them go, remove the roof over their head, um, stop feeding them because they're your slaves or whatever. You don't even have to pay for them or not yet not pay to own them. If you just let them out on their own and it's leave it up to them to survive and to eat or whatever. And many slaves ended up starving or allowed to starve or were killed or just starved in the books, whatever. Um, they'll come work your fields. They'll come beg to work your fields. That's capitalism. Left to its own devices, that's capitalism. That's what it wants. It wants you to come begging to do once what they once had slaves forcibly doing. They want you to do it. They want to pay you a pittance that will pay for merely a roof over your head and mouth and food in your mouth, and that's it. They want to give you a fucking pittance, and that's the fucking trap of capitalism. You think you're free, you're not that free, buddy. Not that free. That's um, why it's important to fight against capitalism. The idea of it, not that it is, because it has benefits, obviously, but allowing corporations to pit state by state, and then and owing to them. Oh, thank you, corporations. Thank you for giving us jobs. Oh, thank you. Oh, you. Thank you for existing. What can we do for you, corporations? Ugh. Yeah, like you want the fucking with the yeah. Obviously, they should be taxed. Obviously, they shouldn't be states shouldn't be allowed to give them extreme incentives to like to not be in another state or whatever. Obviously, the federal government, which at its birth was given charge of intrastate commerce. Obviously, the federal government should be protecting Americans from being robbed by the corporations who are often, as I mentioned earlier, actually it's not even benefiting the state itself, but many times the people who are making these decisions end up working for those industries for which they give huge giveaways with. Like it's just core corruption, like everything else.
Okay, so basically, I'll just wrap this up by saying this. capitalism as an socioeconomic system has lifted billions, hundreds of millions to billions of people globally out of poverty. And if it weren't for capitalism, people would be living in medieval feudal shitholes. This is an absolute fact, and you can trace this back to the industry. Basically, I think people are entitled to what they earn through transactions in a free market, and I believe that because people have a primary interest in themselves before others, people are entitled to this money they earn through transactions in the free market, and this has benefits for the public. But even if it didn't have as many benefits to the public, it would still be justified because, as I said, people's first priority is to themselves. Now, would argue historical evidence is that capitalism has lifted billions of people out of poverty, but we don't even have to go that route. So yeah, I'll just concede the rest of my time from there.